HQ, and we're live. At least I hope we are. Hey, R.I.P. Greg Jein, Star Trek's quiet art giant. Yes, today, episode 264 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek. Larry Nemeczek coming at you right here through the heart of Trekland for some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. Actually, it is a Trekland Thursday Live. Yes, it's a special edition. Bending around my travel plans, just had a huge week back in Oklahoma with SoonerCon and seeing family, and I did not want this week to go by. We've got Strange New Worlds to talk about. We've got all kinds of things, my travel tales. But I really wanted to take a moment. I learned of this about Greg, while we were gone, obviously. And before I dive into that, just a second here to say that if you're a TTL regular, thanks for being with us as always. You know to jump into the chat, but if this is your first time visiting, normally we're on Tuesdays at this time, but here we are on a Thursday. It's special. Maybe you caught us because of that. In any case, jump into the chat, make yourself known, introduce yourself. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to talk about a soapbox today. I'm going to talk about Greg Jein. And then we'll take a tiny break. You won't even notice it live. We'll do the Parrot Analytics streaming TV ratings for the last week. We'll look at Strange New Worlds especially. And then I'll get into the chat full time, okay? So I'm not going to look at the chat unless someone's telling me the world blew up, or mine anyway, and get with that later. So Twitchers, I'm not ignoring you. We'll get to you later if you can hang on. Facebookers, you're only seeing your comments. Twitchers and YouTubers, you're seeing everybody's, just so you know. All righty. Yes. And just so you know, it's an exciting time here. Just a quick reminder about Geek Nation Tour's one-day tour on the day before Trek Vegas on Wednesday, August 24th. It's Con Eve. We're going up to the Valley of Fire as we have before, but what? Not in 4 or 5 years, right? That's coming up. You can check that at Geek Nation Tours, or if you go to my site, you can see that and everything I'm involved with right now, including the Great Birds Origins Tours. It's a tour not of location sites, but of locations that deal with Gene Roddenberry's life from the time he was a young man, a boy, all the way up through his married and professional life. And yes, we will, of course, get to Desilu. We'll get to Desilu Gower, at least, which today is the old TV side of Paramount. So check that out at LarryNemeczek.com. We have a host hotel at the Roosevelt Hotel, Hollywood Roosevelt, but you don't have to stay there. That's where the tour will start both days, all righty? And a real quick shout out, don't forget that season 2 of Picard is coming on DVD. You can pre-order now. It's coming October 4th. You can shop around for the best deal. Start at Amazon and then see where you go from there. Over an hour bonus features for this. Visual, at least. People always critique a story and it has its highs and lows, but it was an amazing visual feast and there's plenty of bonus features for that. All right. I am sitting here to talk about Greg Jein, who I knew had been ill for some time of diabetes. I think the last time I saw him was in 2015 when Preston Neil Jones, who finally took his resurrected live interviews for the motion picture that he did back in 1979. Cinefex, his package deal fell away, and he had all the interviews sitting there. Boy, do I know what that's like. But he had all these from Gene on down, all the cast, and tons of creatives. It was really a rare treat, and he finally put them together as a book. And at the book signing here in Burbank, I saw Greg, said hi. We talked for a minute. And it wasn't very long after that, someone told me that he was not doing well. And he probably was out at maybe some other time after that. But the last few years here, I would have loved to have had him as a guest for the Portales, for Portal 47. But I just didn't. Maybe I should have, because I just knew he was not well. On one hand, from how I understood it, it's amazing that he died May 22nd. We're just now finding out about it now because the family kept it private. But just in his honor, as it started to come out a little bit, I saw people passing along a couple of tweets from Rick Sternbach or posts. different people finally started to say something. I guess the month had passed. He passed of a heart attack. He'd been suffering from diabetes for several years, but it was basically a heart attack. He had several cousins, um, but Greg was a quiet guy. I mean, humble that way. Now, you get him talking, he's a good talker, but even then, he's got that quiet humility. And he did so much, not just with Star Trek. Have you looked at his IMDb? Have you looked at his Memory Alpha? He twice an Oscar nominee. Yes, Close Encounters, but the one I remember, I think he really had a kick out of, was 1941. And if you've never seen it, it was this huge, goofy movie that didn't do the best at the box office. A lot of people don't even know about it now, but it was about the night right after Pearl Harbor, 1941, when the West Coast, Los Angeles area all thought there had been an attack by the Japanese, an aerial bombing. And it was all a flake. But anyway, there was some amazing miniatures work that Greg did. And there's one bit where the Ferris wheel comes off its mooring and rolls. Yeah, it's crazy. All with miniatures. John Belushi's in it. You should check it out. But that was one of his Oscar nominations, along with Close Encounters. But he worked in several genre franchises. Most of all, we think of him, a piece of it, and his heart was always with Star Trek. He had been a fan. He was a fan here in the LA fan mafia. He knew Bijo. He wrote way before his model, and it is noted in Memory Alpha, but way before his modeling career took off, he did what today I would call one of the first bits of canon smoothing or gap filling. But about that same time, I should check the date, but right about the same time, Franz Joseph Schnabelt was getting famous for the Tech Manual and the Enterprise Blueprints, and coming out with the rest of the Constitution class and assigning them NCC names. And sorry if I'm going into the weeds. We're going to do a ship porn. We're going to do tech heads here. Greg did the little-known sign at the beginning. Little known because back in the day, you had to have film clips. You weren't even going to get a Polaroid off your TV that was sharp enough to see the sign that was behind Commodore Mendez's desk in Menagerie, which was a ship status chart that had several NCC numbers and progress bars, which went by in a second. And if you're watching on your 1960s TV, you didn't know. But if you were lucky enough to get a film clip and be able to blow it up, that's what he did. Then an article called The Case of John Doe Starship, wondering about all of those numbers and all the names that we had from the internal memos, which didn't include that. April 1973 issue of a fanzine, T Negative to be precise. And he went through and, depending on, basically just use good old deduction. Sherlock Holmes Data would be very proud to try to attach the registry numbers to the first season, the Constitution, the Connie class names that we had, which, didn't even include the Defiant, but we needed the Defiant's number anyway, and it wasn't on that list. It was a third season deal. A lot of that got picked up eventually. Franz Joseph didn't. So for a long time, the LA local market pre-internet didn't know about that. But over time, Bijo picked up on it and listed it. So over time, there was kind of a competition, an unaware competition between which numbers you used. And eventually, as time went on, as beloved as Franz Joseph's books were, and as so much we took out of them, and so much of it was gap filling that there was no reference otherwise, people came down on the side of Greg's numbers. And then when Mike Okuda got the keys, we started using Greg's numbers because it was the closest thing to being on camera. Yeah. So that was, but we think about Greg for his model building, for the visual effects, for the prop work that he did. You can get a list. Now, my personal memory here is growing up reading about Greg as one of those LA people that worked on Star Trek, one of those names. And coming out finally to work on the Next Gen Companion in a compressed state. I would have loved to talk to him. Didn't get a chance to until my second trip out here. When I was coming out to do the revision, the fourth season, the Red Book, the fourth season, the one from 94, that we had the entire series plus Generations in it. And I had 2 months to be in LA to interview people and bop around. And yes, I did get over to Greg. In fact, I got to Greg's shop with Guy Vardaman. I got to Greg's shop out in Santa Monica, West LA, right as he was finishing up the 3 nacelle Future Enterprise. No, I take that back. No, I take that back. It was the Vorcha. It was the Vorcha. It was the big bad Klingon battle cruiser that premiered in the finale in All Good Things, which was supposed to be from the fake future. But oh my gosh, it was too good a model. Within a year, it was being back very much being very prime. And I've got pictures. Here's what's made me mad. I got on the road. I got back last night. I have pictures put away that I'm going to post of Greg 2 or 3 times in interviews, different things. I've got interviews that I let get out of Word. Not good timing. But I have some pictures of Greg with that model in his shop before he delivered it to visual effects to be, weathered a little bit and all that. But he was so great then. He was so great then. And knew the history. I was scrambling to get credits for back in the day when before the encyclopedia came out, my book was going to be an update. I was scrambling to get who built what. And I'm just getting it from random, Mike and Rick talking. And Greg said, oh, we did a list for insurance purposes. We did a list of all the models I worked on. And thank God, Greg. So you can thank your Red Edition Onward for having a really complete list of the Greg Jein ships. Now, of course, you bop over to Memory Alpha and boom, there they are. They're all listed for you. On all the series, not Enterprise, the films and Next Gen and the, the ships that were rebuilt. What you've got to think, though, about Greg was most famously, maybe, what Greg would do was everybody that was a model builder, there were no model builders on staff. They were all vendors, right? Greg was one of them that had a reputation. I remember Greg telling me what it was like when he was a young model builder. His first work was he built the original Klingon battle cruiser for Phase 2 for Magicam, which was discarded when they decided they were going to the motion picture. And it was going to be higher res camera work. And most all the props and ships and things built for the series were not going to stand up to blockbuster big screen status. So that went away. But then he still got called in by Doug Trumbull in the mad dash to get things done and worked on a ton of things. Miniatures for Spock's spacewalk inside V'ger. Interior V'ger pieces. He did all kinds of things. But the biggest thing that I remember him talking about was what that was like. The mad dash to make the December 7th deadline, or else Paramount was going to be out a ton of penalty money to the theaters that it got to book this all day, like a blockbuster. The money they would lose if there was no movie sitting there on December 7th ready for them, and they'd have empty theaters. And how it was like everybody and their grandma and their grandma's dog and their grandma's dog's veterinarian second assistant babysitter, kids barely old enough to hold a glue tube or a paintbrush, were busy madly putting a lot of these, especially the V'ger pieces, together to be able to film. They didn't have to be detailed ship models. They just had to be there. And what that was like. Of course, Greg was doing high-end work, but it was when he was first really becoming a professional and going through that baptism of fire. He set himself up, Greg Jein Incorporated, and at times had teams of model builders working for him and bid out. And at that time, then wound up working for Spielberg. The Spielberg shows, Close Encounters was right in that mix. Just new people. Tony Meininger, he knew. Boss Film, where Dan Curry came from, others. But all that, the community back then, all knew each other. The thing, though, when he was there around for the beginnings of Next Generation, who famously went with ILM, right, to get started, to build the big model of the D, the models for the pilot. But after that, even though, Bob Justman and his successors would have them on it, they knew they had a budget. And kids, we're way before CGI here. We're years. So everything is physical models. Reusing models, as we know from the movie. Boy, that Excelsior was around a long time. 100 years that Excelsior lasted, that basic design. With tweaks, I know, for the B eventually. but so many oddball, turn it upside down, turn it backwards, run it, put new coat of paint. But there were times when new models had to be built. And I mean, one of the famous ones was the Enterprise C, the Ambassador class, which had a basic design shape sitting on the wall of plaques over there. The original Enterprise D, the painting that Andy Probert did, wound up being basically the Ambassador when the D became a little more streamlined and svelte, right? The C is a little more clunky, the Ambassador class, and that's what Greg built for yesterday's Enterprise. What? You want a whole new ship model in the middle of a season? And its third season, and we're still battling money issues, but everybody knew yesterday's Enterprise was, well, no, they didn't. They knew it was trying to be special. It was a shit show getting the show written and filmed. But yeah, you had to have, there was no way around it. You had to have the C. It had to be a model nobody had seen before. And as he did so many times, Greg jumped in and delivered a model, and he didn't charge anywhere near what he should have. But that was a love of Star Trek, loving to be involved moment. And that's the quiet kind of guy he was. Sure, he did all kinds of work. And sure, like I said, twice Oscar nominated working with Spielberg's and their team. So many other, you can look at his IMDb and see. I'm not gonna repeat it. But what I'm trying to tell you here is what was the most amazing thing about Greg is he would jump in to crank something out, and especially if it was Star Trek, probably just get the thing done. I don't want to say you can pay him later. You can pay him what you think the model is worth, but took a huge cut over and over and over again. Did the same thing on Trials and Tribulations. Trials and Tribulations wound up not just with a brand new half-size Enterprise that you've seen, that I was lucky enough to go over and see, but the original K7 was just a small model, built one to match the 1701 and build a D7 Klingon battlecruiser, which did not exist at the time of Tribbles, but now we have one. And detail on all these models such that in the conceit of, no, you didn't see it in 1967, but if you've been able to push a camera into it, here's the detail that you've got. That was a design ethic that everybody involved with Tribulations brought to it, from Herman Zimmerman on down, through Mike and Rick, and then on down to the actual model builder, Greg. And again, Greg tossed in tons of material that he was not getting paid for, but because everyone was caught up in the magic of Tribulations, from the visual effects, the Forrest Gumping, to just recreating those sets, and it had to follow through with the miniatures, and we had to have another shot at seeing what we didn't see. But that is why that's just the way Greg was, and he was so quiet and humble about it. And one of the last times I really, really talked to him was when he was working on Insurrection, and he'd been called in for Santa Barbara Studios, who they had tried once again to get away from ILM and try somebody else. And Insurrection was going to be the first, after the 4 experimental CG ships in the Borg battle at the beginning of First Contact, the first CG ships ever. Well, the LeCoultre in Generations was CG, but it was so distant. It was the first high-res action ships and Starfleet ships were the Akira, etc. The Akira, the Steamrunner, the Saber, and I'm going bonk on the last one. From the beginning of First Contact, which was a huge thing that Alec Yeager developed at ILM. Santa Barbara Studios Insurrection was going to CG. It was going to be the first all CGI, no analog models movie, which of course at the end with the reshoots, there was no time to develop CG models. And so the crazy collector explosion, the Die Hard kind of moment there at the end of Insurrection from the reshoots, wound up being physical models. So they had to break the little marketing thing there. First, all CGI'd Star Trek. But study models that the CGI folks at Santa Barbara could work with, Greg developed those. And was at the art department. Again, I have photos and I have interviews that I have not uncovered here in my 12 hours back home. So I just want to not lean on the props and lean on the heart and say what a good guy he was. The other thing about Greg was he loved the industry and he was a fan himself, if you couldn't tell. And his shop out in West LA, he had glommed onto being in the industry and knowing people, even if he wasn't there at the time, even if he came along later, knowing people who took stuff home and then had to get rid of it. And he had the miniature chariot model from Lost in Space with all the little Robinsons. He had so much stuff, Star Trek and beyond. And that's why it was doubly sad when the CGI revolution did take its toll. He didn't make the big change to doing CGI model working. He was a hands-on guy. And, Greg was Chinese American. And, the cultural DNA of a lot of Asian cultures and people from that part of the world is they betray their age. They look a lot younger than their calendar years. And I had no idea. Greg was 76. He would have been 77 here in a couple of months. The last time I saw him did not look like a man around 70. And that's I don't know. There's a lot of Star Trek folk. Dorothy was the same way. Betrayed her age. Look, Star Trek keeps us young. I'm just gonna hang on to that. But there was a point when Greg finally had to shut down his big garage, paying the rent on it, his big studio, his lab, and was moving and put the call out, and a ton of the community around LA, this was 15 years ago, back in the aughts, came to help move out of his old shop. And at the time, I think you're starting to see some stories pop up online of a few things he started to give away at the time. But he was amazing. He had a mini. If that had been kept intact, it would have been the best starter museum for Hollywood special effects miniatures work ever in one place. But alas, it's mostly been broken up now. The bottom line about Greg, and I'm so glad that I knew him, and I'm so glad that I could share that so many people were sharing that. You can talk to Mike and Rick Sternbach and Doug Drexler, and everybody can talk to you about Greg Jein, which is great because, ironically, I think about another Chinese American master artist, Hua Chang, whose name was hidden all the years he was performing the real stuff that Star Trek needed in the 60s, in the original series. But between the hang-ups about it, well, he wasn't union. He was an independent vendor, and they had tiny budgets. And you can read Bob Justman's book and read how they had to go under the table to get what they wanted because the union, and I love unions, but I'm just saying, in the 60s, the guys that worked for Lucy, and they needed a trick prop for a Lucy show, the bar was the requirements were a little different than for Star Trek. Maybe churning out the rubber hero or the rubber, the stunt props that were for the background extra. But when you needed a hero on camera, communicator, a tricorder, a phaser with tiny operating pieces, that was not going to come out of the Desilu prop shop back in the day. And Hua Chang provided those. And none of us knew his name until years later. And we finally gave him his due about the time he passed in the 90s. We were doing Communicator magazine by then and got to do a suitable memorial piece for him. But it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the beast pre-now. You see millions of names in credits, and you may roll your eyes and you may fast forward through all that. But those are people who are living their lives and getting their paycheck and hopefully doing something they love. And that was not always the case with credit. Now you have the luxury to fast forward, or you can watch all those and look for somebody you might know. Back in the day, even on features, that was not always so. And so many artisans and craftsmen did not get the credit and had to be resurrected later. And sometimes being historic people that were overlooked for one reason or another in their unit, in their community, in their guild, in their area of expertise. And we can only thank them after the fact. Well, Greg was one that we were able to thank, we were able to spotlight, even though you had to be a tech head to know it. But at least there are interviews with Greg. There's, we can look at the list of his work. We can hear others talk about it. We can look at his start and how people gave him a start, how Doug Trumbull gave him a start, and how he gave a start to so many others who love the business. Even as, again, his love, miniature work, slowly turned to CGI. I'm glad to see that in the last few years, we've seen that that's a craft that does not need to disappear. And we need it for more than just architectural models at museums, that kind of thing, or presentations. CG and flat screens, until we get to the point we have, 9J pink ray holographs for presentations and pitches, we will still need physical models. And we will still need physical models in detail as miniatures for camera work. There are times when some craftsmen will still want that. And that art and science and craft needs to stay alive. And the heart that's attached to that. Greg had all the talent, the amazing talent in the world, but the heart of loving what most of his work went to, which was sci-fi, fantasy genre. And at the core of that, even, yes, I would say Star Trek. The case of John Doe Starship, he did the damn thing in 1973, tracking film clip frames to get to that. And I go back and point at that as one of the first cases of something that I fell into, not being aware of that, but going, aha, thank you, Greg, for looking at the on-canon evidence and trying to deduce what we can out of it the best we can with the pieces we have to play with. So with all that's going on in Star Trek right now, with all that's going on in the world right now, and believe me, I'm not divorced from that, with all there is, all the reason in the world to to cling on to Star Trek and our good old hopeful future and realize there's some things worth fighting for. The people that made that future come alive and did it with heart, like Greg, yes, you better believe I'm going to stop for a moment and remember Greg and remember him for all of those who are just coming to the fold, who may not realize the impact, both visually and spiritually, that they had on our franchise, on our community, on our Star Trek that we all love, even today. That's it. That's it. I've got more to talk about. I'm going to hold. We've got a short week. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, normal. So I'm going to save a couple of topics for then, including Strange New Worlds and including my exploits at CenterCon and yet another con out there in the COVID generation. If anybody's got something to say about Greg, let's get that out in the chat. It's kind of amazing. I'll have some reference here if there's something that pops up or somebody has a question. But yeah, for right now, let's go ahead and wrap up our part. Hey, if you're on YouTube and watching this later, please join us sometime. We do have a whole live show that you don't see for YouTube to be chopped down in YouTubeable moments. But before you go, I do want to give a shout out first off to all of our TTLers who are with us today. Hey, look, it's Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, Anne-Marie Siegel, Keith Rombach, Justin Porteous, Blaze K, Nathaniel Robinson, Andrew Jasimski, and Pranakasha Productions, our newest Patreon, and our live wires. Rusty Harold, Habyard Gunn Johnson, Robert McLean, Alan Hohensi, J.R. Poole, Byron Bailey, Dave Gregory, Gay Clevin Lundstrom, and K.C. Shafsky. I want to thank all of them. They're in on a Patreon for me for our live streaming. It's $5 and $10 a month. It's very simple. It's $5 and $10 for the shout outs, $10 for access to really early Portal 47 interviews. When I find my interview with Greg, I think I'm going to put that into the mix. I'm going to release that to the Portales, and then we'll put it up available on the board. It'll be from 1998 at least, if I don't have one from 1994. But it's patreon.com/Trekland Live if you'd care to come over and help us as we expand here. Of course, if it's Tuesday, that means it's Trek Files Tuesday too. and it's Thursday. So there was one back on Tuesday. It's another visit with our friend friend Mike Demerit. Still got travel lag, guys. Mike Demerit's back for another look, diving into, I know, numbers are boring, but Mike makes numbers come alive. We're looking at original series budgets and what they tell us archaeologically about the original series and what they mean for today, for the Berman era, and for today, too. He teaches at one of the film schools here in LA, but a long-time assistant director, been a guest on Portal 47, not once but twice, and he does us a good turn on the Trek Files. So check that out. It's been up since Tuesday. It comes up every Tuesdays. I will have another great one as we get close to the end of our 8th season. I know. And of course, if you're at Larry Nemechek, that's me on Twitter. Larry Nemechek's Trekland on Facebook, Instagram, and please like and subscribe us on YouTube. Portal47.net picked up some new portales over the weekend at SoonerCon, so I'm excited for that to keep growing. It's the mini-con all year long, no matter where your center seat is. We were Zooming way before the pandemic, just to let you know. And of course, one more shout out for if you are headed to Vegas, and even if you're not, you're welcome to join us for the one-day Valley of Fire Kirk Memorial Tour. The death scenes from Generations, and a few more extras that you don't even know unless you come on the tour with us. Wednesday, August 24th, you can check it out at geeknationtours.com, or you can find that one and what's coming up the next year and a half at larrynemechek.com, my site, including the Great Birds Origins Tour, 2 days in August to close out Gene Roddenberry's centennial birth year. That's a lot of fun. 2 days of going to places that were important to Gene as a kid, in his career, in his other career at LAPD, and some surprises with Rod Roddenberry along with us for part of it. So hope you can join us for that. Yes. We'll take a quick break now. Thanks for joining us again today. Thanks for looking in on us here if you're with us on YouTube. And again, join us on Tuesdays if you can. And until the next time I see you, please stay healthy, everybody. Do all the things. There's a mini outbreak of COVID from SoonerCon, despite everyone's best conscientious efforts. I heard 9 so far. Even if it's mild, it's annoying. Stay woke. Pay attention to what's going on, kiddos. Yeah. Check the sources. Make sure the sources you're seeing are accurate, correct, and then be open. Having witnesses that seem unimpeachable is a good thing. You might want to pay attention to what they're telling you. I guess what I'm saying, gang, is trek well. Okay. Are we having issues here today? We are back. It's a Thursday. Maybe that's thrown everybody. I'm seeing a lot of our regulars in, everyone. Jared, be careful as you come back from London. Looking for questions. The TTHLers. Yes, Linda, thank you much. Oh, not so keen on the Strange New Worlds episode, eh? Rusty, you weren't too keen on the Star Trek meets Alien? I'm a fancier dresser on Thursdays. Okay. Hey, Dean. It's good to see you. Norman. Hope everything's going well. Shout out down to the Outback. Hi, Narda. Okay, we'll take it easy on spoilers then. You're going to Brazil in August. There's a Trek community in Brazil. They may be kind of scattered, but they're down there. Just so. Uh-oh. I'm not working on Facebook, or I wasn't, but I've got people coming in on I've got people coming in on Facebook, looks like. Can't wait for the Picard Blu-ray. Absolutely. Yes. Sad about Greg Jein. Hey, Dan, you can't remember which article? John Doe Starship? Oh, look at you. You have a couple of great. I knew you would, Rusty. I knew you would. Yes. Very much so. It's interesting that this is one of those cases where he really passed a month ago. And I should say, though, that yesterday, befitting his station, the Hollywood Reporter had a full-blown great piece if you want to read. If you want to see professional journalism do the right thing. The headline is, Gregory Jein, Star Trek model maker and two-time Oscar nominee, dies at 76. The tagline is, he worked with effects pioneer Doug Trumbull, and his credits included Close Encounters, The Dark Knight Rises, Avatar, and Mulan. So there you go. And then it's a really, really nice long piece. Goes all back through his career and who he worked with. Here you go. Aside from Dark Knight and Interstellar, One from the Heart, Buckaroo Banzai, I should have mentioned, Red October, Judge Dredd, Scorpion King, Fantastic Four, Avatar, Real Steel, John Carter, Alice Through the Looking Glass. I want to say he worked on the main plane miniature for Air Force One. Harrison Ford's, actioner. Yeah. And some of his early work is in here too. Oh yeah, he worked on Flesh Gordon. Oh, and Dark Star. Yes, he built the ship for Dark Star, I think. I saw somebody talking about that. Well, Narda, if you didn't know a lot about Greg Jein, now you do. That's our point. Very talented and a very humble and a very unassuming guy, and he did things probably things he shouldn't have, as in undercut his pricing, but he loved the industry and he loved the genre so much and he loved Trek so much that he liked to make sure that things were there. And there you go. There's a vote for the ambassador class. Now, not to say that Greg designed the ambassador. That started with Andy and then modified by Rick. But Greg's the one that brought it to fruition and put all the damn escape hatches on it. Hi, Rose. I'm glad you're with us today. Top chat. It is Thursday. I know. I was very much involved with family on Tuesday. So thank you. Hey, Gregor. Are you new with us on Thursday? If you've been lurking, but glad to have you with us. And yes, Trials and Tribulations was awesome. And one slice of the awesome of that was, again, Greg going above and beyond to deliver more than he was contracted for or that they had budget for. Hey, Stephen. Hope the heat wave broke it did. I did by Sunday, thank goodness. Yes, this is what I'm trying to get across too. The adorable UFO family from Batteries Not Included. There you go. And the Lectoid ships from Buckaroo Banzai. Thank you for specifying. Some of the stuff I've known over the years, but you know what? I knew Batteries Not Included. And if you haven't seen that movie, that's a cute one too. But he did the adorable UFO family. Good way to put it. Norway. I missed this. Norway Productions was Jean's production company. Yeah, I got around to this too, Christoph. Flesh Gordon. Yes. Early days. Yeah. Furious fans. Hi, Furious. Okay, I'm seeing your picture, but you're not letting me know. Yeah, but hey, look, there are some that I didn't get to and I should have, and I wish I did. So let's see. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, do something and meet Doug. He will be around as soon as you try. Let's see. Well, hopefully I'll make it to the end of the show here. Boom. Okay, classic. What are you saying, Michael? Not aware till now that Greg Jein was involved in 2 of your all-time favorite episodes. Well, there you go, Michael. Now, I think I've got him widely mentioned in The Companion, which means probably that whether I got credit or not, I'm sure those got amalgamated into Memory Alpha articles. So, and there's a nice Memory Alpha article with a long list of his ships. I'll just never forget how great it was when I got to talk to Greg and he said, "Oh, here, I've got a list already made up." I was like, I mean, gang, it was 1994 and I was on a deadline and we didn't have Memory Alpha or anything digital. We were making the stuff that Memory Alpha would take as its starter batch. And when he whipped out that 2-page list of single type ships, I was like, oh, thank God. Not only the ships, but when they were redressed, because he usually did the redressing, right? Like the Merchantman from Star Trek 3. How many times was that redone, reworked? The Packlet and everything else. Yeah, Marta, Star Trek keeps us young. I think so too. Wouldn't get blocked by me. I say ship porn all the time in the way it, yeah. But Flesh Gordon was higher level. It was parody. It was parody sci-fi first, porn second. Yes. You're an end credit watcher, Narda. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's gotten tougher. It used to be a lot easier to be an end credit watcher. Even the TV series are much longer now. Don't look it up. So of course you did. Wikipedia says Beeger Trimble. Oh, on Flesh Gordon. Yes. Uh-oh, Ben, you got me. Boom, boom. Yeah, Stephen, here's something that the coolness of going to Image G, which was the major motion control shop for all of Next Generation, DS9, Voyager, and into Enterprise. Enterprise was mainly digital, though. But starting with the NX-01, there was never a physical model built of the NX-01. One of my favorite trivia questions. But to be able to walk into Image G and see what was on the camera rig, and then just walk in the back and see, I have photos of just stuff sitting on shelves that went into the auction later, or the crates that they were going to be using or they had just used, sitting there waiting to either be reloaded and taken away, or they'd come in to be unloaded. And to have Dan Curry see me and go, "Hey, come over to Image G. We're about to unload the so-and-so." Or, "Oh, we just got the new," I'll never forget the new Jem'Hadar cruiser or battleship, but it had a bad part and it sagged, and they had to always, one of the pylons sagged because it was asymmetrical and it weighed a ton, and they called it the Lead Hadar. And they had to make sure, and it melted a little bit. Anyway, they had to always make sure they showed it from a certain angles that wouldn't show the saggy pylons, as it weighed a ton, the Lead Hadar. But that was the fun of hard models. Walking into some CG lab and just seeing a bunch of people staring at, no, it totally is the scene in First Contact when they're touching the Phoenix. And Picard talks about you could feel when you have the tactile sense in the field. And yes, Deanna, you can leave us boys alone. Good point. The model work in the first 4 films and First Contact all look amazing in 4K. Yes, because you had guys and gals. Judy Elkins was in there building, but also adapting. But you had a lot of women working in the business in then. So guys, gals, peeps, everybody. But those people put so much extra in because it was their love anyway. And then they all were Trek fans. And they knew that what they were doing was going to be looked at 50 years from now. Maybe they didn't realize about the 4K treatment. Some of them probably did, even in the 90s. But yes. Okay, we're going to block this. Boom. Now, what are you saying? You'd love to do some Trek nerd stuff in America, but you always feel like you wouldn't be a hardcore enough of a fan. Well, fandom is in the eye of the holder. I'm sorry. You are a fan no matter what you want to do. So don't let anything intimidate at all. We've got all these online resources. We have Memory Alpha. We have everybody and their dog doing YouTubes and podcasts, and there are books. So can't call you by name unless you give me a translation. So, but don't you ever knock yourself down for not being enough of a fan. That does not exist. And I hope you get a chance to see that for yourself sometime. Okay, there we go. Scrolling back marker. But this looked really short when I started. Well, this is why I was going to do alliteration for a live show, and it was going to be Trekland Tuesdays or Trekland Thursday, and I realized that Thursdays was a big travel day for cons for me. So I thought Tuesdays would be more set and undisturbed than Thursdays, which has been right. It's only the week I spend in Oklahoma that I've done this, I believe. There's been once or twice I tried to do a Tuesday show post-con before I come home. Most of the time, I'd just rather wait and do this. Okay, Ben, that's all I'll say. That's all I will say about it. And thank you for the heads up. Good to see you, Ben, and have you make. Is Thursday better than Tuesday for live? We have guest night tonight for Portal. Portal also got delayed from a Wednesday to a Thursday. We have Scott Trimble, who's the location scout and location manager on Star Trek 09 and STID, Star Trek Into Darkness. I know, but it was there. And then he also was the Picard Season 1 location scout and manager-ish, and has lots of tales to tell about why things were why, and interacting that way. He also does work on a few other things. Oh, little things like all the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and he's done tons and tons and tons. At first as just a scout, and then as a location manager, producer. So we'll focus on Trek tonight, and he'll have some photos as usual, as all our Portal guests. So again, I invite you guys to take a look at Portal 47. It's awesome. You were hoping for a better Mabenga's Brain episode last week. What you were hoping for more than it was teased? Is that what it is here? They're sure bopping around. Well, this is good to hear. Good to hear that the Facebook was good then. Okay, good to deal. We got that settled. Hi, Gregor. Sounds like you are new with this here on Tuesdays Live on Thursday today. Gregor, I think you can be, low that I raise a bar on someone, because that's their dragons lurk there. You can get in trouble by raising expectations too much. But I will say, I think you can be mildly optimistic, and then I'll let you decide after that if you haven't binged any of it. So we'll try to take it easy. No, Dan, I was wondering if that's what you meant. When you said you remembered the article, I just meant, did you mean the Jonathan Doe Starship one or something else I mentioned? But I thought that's what you meant. But I was not trying to say that you didn't remember it. No, I'm not doubting your word. I was just trying to make sure I understand what your word was. We're cool. Thank you, Rusty. He did work on Air Force One. That's one of the last ones I remember. Batteries not included. The Blob remake. Yeah, they're all in his IMDb. It's amazing. And you're going to stay mum about this one. Yes. Number 9, the penultimate. See? Yeah, exactly, Rusty. He should have been a guest. But no, he's standing in line to buy a ticket to the old Grand Slams in Pasadena from Creation. That was Greg, folks. That was Greg. Hi, Jim. Good to see you back with us. Yay. Okay, Gregor, I wondered. Good to have you back with us. Maybe Thursday helps. Uh, you haven't seen Flesh Gordon until you've seen it in the original Klingon. See, this is me, Stephen. I'm an underdog guy, right? Tellarites, Andorians, McCoy, Scotty. That's why I love the Ambassador too, because it got the least screen time until you get bits of it reused in some of the battle bits. But you made your fictional USS Texas an Ambassador class. Yes, he built that one. Yes, indeed. On the run, in a shitstorm of production craziness, and it moved up. The reason the writing was insane was because was a cluster F, was because of Whoopi's schedule, which meant that the miniature, in a way, had to be delivered earlier. Visual effects comes a little later, but if it's that much effects work, and remember there's a vortex they had to do, yeah, go back and read my entry for that eventually, I think. Hey, Dan, what time are the P-47 guest interviews? They're 7 Pacific, so they're middle of the night for you. I know, that's why the recordings, we have the roundtables in Europe time, but the guests, it's going to be, what, 3 in the morning? Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Flesh Gordon was a brilliant parody. And yeah, there you go. Sorry, Zach. Zahir? Zach. Sorry. In season 3 of Umbrella Academy, there's a romance between a Luther and a Sloane. Well, there you go. It's slightly off topic, or is it? Interesting. We're back to Flesh Gordon. Dr. Jerkoff's rocket is not completely unlike Greg Jean's 2161 Romulan warship, maybe a little bit cockeyed. Yes, remember Greg is the one that did the prototypical ships that Mike and Denise used in their original chronology and original black and white edition encyclopedia. He built a Phoenix before the Phoenix that we knew was canonized on film in First Contact. And then it was reused. But he's the one that built the Odyssey Essex. The ship models you'd see around Cisco's office tended to be Greg's models. Were all the models in DS9 real and not? Greg, yes, Gary Hutzel did not want the burgeoning state of CG, even as they started to use CG on Voyager, didn't think that it was up to snuff enough for DS9. And he did not like the idea that he's the visual effects supervisor and he loses control, that he has to take, in 90s technology terms, he had to take what some visual effects shop just gave him. Because otherwise, when you built a physical model, if you wanted some tweaks made, you sent it back to the model maker, assuming there's time, and had them do bits, or you put it on yourself if you needed to weather it your certain way or whatever. And if you weren't a digital artist, you were totally at the mercy of the visual. It's like, here it is, take it or leave it, and you're on deadline. And our digital wizards don't have time to go back and make tweaks back and forth. And he didn't like that. He wanted to be in control, not because he was a control freak, because that's what he thought his job was. And that's what his job had been with analog models, because he was very particular about what he put on screen to add to the Trek canon. And it was not until season 7 that they started to adapt CGI, when he had a system in place that he could have CG people that he could tweak back and forth with and have confidence in it. So season 7 of DS9, admittedly a big year, and it helped with those space battles, yes, indeed. But that's the first time that CG touched DS9's lips. So there you go. Random CGs, like the Silicon Avatar on Next Gen was CG, for one thing. Junior's mother, the spaceborne life form. And was it Booby Trap or the other one? The other Leah Brahms. That was CG, the mother, for the cesarean birth. Yes. There were 2. Hey, Duke Bacon, are you new with us, or are you twitching over from another identity? There were 2. Well, there was the Jem'Hadar fighter, And then there were the warship and the battleship, and they wanted to. The scale didn't really work. Maybe we get these things. Maybe we get these things HD'd or 4K'd, and we get them on a big screen. They'll be more apparent. But yes, thank you, Ben. All are welcome. All are welcome. All are welcome. Credits aren't just longer, they're also almost miniaturized. Plus, they buy faster than Warp 10. Makes the credit nerds nuts. I know. And then you have to fight your streaming service to let you see credits. There are only two kinds of Trek fans, those who have seen Trek and those who haven't seen it yet. Exactly. I like that. I like that, Gregor. Tuesday or Thursday, both are fine. Well, I'm just saying, Thursday gets interrupted a lot. I did Tuesday totally independent of Trek Geeks' Trek Tuesday. I know 26-year-old Trekkie has Trek Towel Tuesday. People like the alliteration. So I'm sorry there's only 2 days starting with T, and one of them was going to be a travel day, speaking of T's. So I came to Trekland Tuesdays live totally independent of anybody else. And you're just spoiling it for... No, you're not spoiling it. I think we're fine. Yeah, Trekland Tuesdays live has a better ring than Trekland Thursdays live. You liked last week's SNW. It did stay... Boy, Anson single-handedly was trying to make it silly, but there you go. See, I was trying to remember if he made... It should be in there. Somebody's going to go find... what are you throwing at me here, Duke? Oh, okay. So it was the fighter that sold at auction. There you go. Yeah, I think the big one... I think the warship and the battleship sold earlier. Boom. You think that last week's... that number 8 should be the Elysian Kingdom, or the Kingdom of Alicia, ought to get an Emmy nod for costuming. We can see. Oh. Did Deborah the Nebula manifest La'an's dog from nothing, or is there a dog or two on the Enterprise? Could have been manifested from memory. That's what we'll see. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Dan. Galaxy's Child. I knew it had reference to the birth and the child, and I was born. I was born. I was brain dead. An actual question, Stingray. Nexstar bought 75% of CW. Paramount and Warner Brothers still keep 12.5% each because they merged originally for 50-50. Think with that 12% is enough for the long talk about Star Trek Academy show for the network? If all these Treks keep performing well, then Nexstar might be... If these people were intelligent and they could see where the trend line is going, even with the troubled start Discovery had, it is still beloved by a chunk of people. And then as Strange New Worlds and the animateds break out, I would think that Nexstar would think being associated with a Trek would not be a bad investment. I would think they would think, yeah. Now, whether or not it goes the way of Nickelodeon and Prodigy and there's a dual deal, but it still goes to Para Plus, I don't know. Because CW is still trying to be terrestrial. It's not it has an app, but it's not a standalone app like Paramount Plus or Disney Plus or whatever. So I don't think they'd see it as competition, maybe. Hey, Duke, you're new here, but you've met me at cons. Oh, no. Don't believe everything you saw or heard. Most recently at Phoenix at FanFest, I'm the guy who complained he thought Strange New Worlds Ansem Pike didn't have the military bearing that Hunter did. Oh, okay. I brought up the Rigel encounter. Okay. You've got me going back to it. But yeah, I would say that. All I will say is, what does Kirk tell Jillian? You're not seeing us at our best. I'm just going to say that the audience didn't see Jeffrey Hunter's Pike at his best. He was really at a low spot. And you might almost have to go back and watch the tag scene to get, and it's like Pike was depressive. And Anson Mount's Pike certainly isn't, but we've seen the dark side. We've seen Anson's Pike consider the Talos 4 implications and consider that, and also consider death in his face on the comet and with the Gorn. But we've also seen him be completely lighthearted. And no, I don't just mean episode 8. I mean at other times too. He's really a well-rounded, healthy person, but who had his dark side. And we saw him start in a dark side too. We saw Pike both times, in both appearances, start out in a down place. And it was both over, well, it wasn't over a Talos 4. The first one was over the loss of crewmen and the drudgery of command. And he bounced back from that early in his time there, or 4 years in, I guess, or 2 years in. Anyway, it's good to talk to you then. I am remembering our conversation, but glad you found your way here, and on Twitch too. Wow. And you hung around for Twitch. Hi, Dan. No, I was waiting till I got home, even though I had the screener for a few days. I have not watched it yet, and I'll watch it with... have you noticed, I don't know about yours, but my screeners, the audio is so muddy. The first time I watched episodes on that, I was like, oh my God, I can't understand Babs. I can't understand half of what's happening. Thankfully, the dropped final editions are wonderful, but you can't, the audio is muddy, the dialogue track is muddy, and there's no captions. So it's almost like there are times when I think I'm not getting 3/4 of the dialogue here, and I can't rely on the captions, the subtitles. You can't wait to binge it, but it won't happen until the end of August. Right. Well, there you go, Duke. Would I steer you wrong? Now, we may disagree on things, but there are many times I see there's no need for people to have an early... Well, there's always need. I'm not going to tell anybody how to think, but I will sure throw bits and pieces out your way. I don't know. Are we at the end of the chat so soon? Yes, it's Christina's doggy. It is Christina's actual dog and not La'an's. All right. Oh, you're from the UK, Gregor. Okay, very good. Well, I wouldn't want to slow you down hitting the blanket. Dan, from before your sun burned hot in space. What do you think about the cover of the book saying the Kingdom of Elysian? Yet Mbenga says the book, which he's apparently read loads of times, his daughter, is the Elysian Kingdom. It's fine. This is, I will say, this is so... You've never had a book that you miss, that you rearrange the title to tell somebody? Have you always been absolutely on point with everything you've... How many things do we wind up calling a certain way when the title is really something else? No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm surprised that it's the Kingdom of Elysian and not the Kingdom of Elysia. But anyway, I think with all that he has to put up with, I think Mbenga is totally entitled to call the book whatever the hell he wants to call it. How many times do we drop the from titles of things? Rusty. Star Trek Janeway hashtag picks up where Picard will leave off after season 3, maybe. Are you just throwing that out there? Have you been privy to some insider stuff? They're not going to shoot it in LA unless Kate puts her foot down and makes them shoot it in New York. I wish somebody would put their foot down with Patrick Stature and make them shoot in LA again, so we'd hire people over here. Oh, hi. Hi, Nadim. What did I do? But whatever I did, you're welcome. After a couple of episodes, you love Mount's Pike. Yes, or Pike's Peak, as we've been talking to. Met lyric. Cons what? Have I heard there will be a 4K screening of TMP in the UK soon? David C. Fine wasn't sure if it's legit news, but told me he was consulting. If David is not up on it, Dan, I'm sure not going to be up on it. So no, I have not heard anything, but I'm sure we'll see soon for all the UK folk. Star Trek Janeway is actually called Prodigy. The animated The animated. We will see. There you go, Nadim. We'll see them both. Yes. This is true, Anson. Zaire, Anson's Pike could still be high-functioning depressive. Where's Dr. Ali when you need him? Paging Dr. Ali. Yeah, so much for lurking mode. Well, we're talking about, Ali and I were talking about needing a special maybe soon. So we'll see how he's adapted to having 2 kids, and we'll see what happens coming up. Cons, where the proprietor always plays intergalactic jazz that'll leave a SETI Alpha ear in your ear. Okay, that was a long way around the horn to get to something. Old Narda, I've said this for ages. A series that shows Midway Kirk Picard. Yes, I've wanted one that was Midway Archer and Kirk. Yes. It would be. Welcome to my club. I've said that for at least 10, 15 years now. Oh, I'm sorry, Christoph. You need subtitles for lots of current due to audio hearing problems, particularly Discovery. They overdo the whispering. Oh, yes. Well, they whisper a lot on Discovery. Yes. Pompadour Pike. Okay, Ben, you want to throw that one in the ring? Yes. Glenn, you've noticed in a lot of TV shows in the past several years, they mix voices down very low and the action scenes and music very high. It's quite annoying. They're just trying to get Emmys for the composers. Yeah. The sound mixers never win, but they try to. No, I'm kidding. All I know is that the as released episodes are so much better. After I watched the big batch of 5 at the beginning, and all 5 of them were just, and anyone with an accent, British accents, African accents, anybody with an accent, it was like worse than the first 20 minutes of a Shakespeare play to your ear adjusts. It was just muddy, and thank goodness that's not the way they're out. But it really cuts down on the fun of having a screener early. There have been times when I almost will just wait and watch it normal, rather than get skewed on catching or not catching something. Pike's hair is its own character, Pike's Peak. Its own action figure. Well, if it's not made by companies, they'll be fan-made. We're already seeing it. Yes. Now, don't get too excited. We've talked about it. In fact, Ali brought it up. So I know. We'll let you know. You will for sure let you know. There you go. From the pro, Christoph. Dean does that for a living. Dialogue enhancement. The not quite next generation. Exactly. You got it. Waiting for the Pike's Peak trade. Oh, speaking of trading cards, one more thing about Greg. When they have the Buck Bokai trading card, before Buck Bokai is cast as a character, Keon Young plays him. The first Buck Bokai character, which is in the encyclopedia, is Greg Jein. And they've got Greg Jein in a baseball uniform for it. The one that they have as a prop before they need the one that has to match an actor. Yes, very much. Because, Buck Bokai is first mentioned way back with the Dixon Hill episode first on Next Generation. Often the end credits are twice as loud as anything else. Yeah. A series between Archer and Kirk would be totally awesome. I live and hope for these great. And you have tons of elbow room. You don't have to feel. I love how they used to worry about, I'm tied down by canon. It's like, no, you're not. You can totally. They worry that if it's not tethered more to canon, to Kirk and Spock and Picard and Data, that no one will watch it. It's like, no, go pioneer a whole new corner and only obliquely have throwbacks forward and backward or tie-ins. Send me your screener and you'll screen it for me. Yes. Who's poisoned my screener? I need a screener taster watcher. Yes, an interview of Nick Meyer's con series might be an auto drama podcast. Oh, what audio drama would I like to hear and cast bring back? McCoy retirement years. You mean the envelope for Harv Bennett's Academy show? I don't know. Maybe Dorothy's original Joanna. Oh, Eric Jendressen's Romulan War script. I don't know. I've got it. I never have read it. I need to read it to see if it's actually worth the hoopla about being, oh, this would be cool. Why did they not know they made it? Because Rick's time was up and no one was returning his calls the last 6 months. Him continuing and doing a movie was not part of the Paramount plan. You weren't a fan of Pike's Ears. Okay. There you go. The big goodbye. That's the other word for the end of the chat. And it looks like that's where we are. Thank you. I know it's the first Dixon Hill episode on Next Gen. Thank you, Dan. Went blank. There we are. And yeah, I need to read it. I've had it for a while. I forgot that I had it and I need to read it. But it's got original characters, heaven forbid. And who's going to risk Star Trek on original characters? Well, we do it every few years, apparently. Gang, that is going to do it for today. Thank you for finding me here on Thursday. People watching later on, all you YouTubers, etc., watching later won't know what we're talking about because normally we're out on Tuesdays. And if you can, I would love for you to join us there. So one more shout out to all of our TTLers on our live wires and our TTL club. Yep. If you want to help us out too, it's very simple, $5 and $10. I have a simple Patreon with simple rewards, but I appreciate everybody who can jump in and help us out. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. And another shout out. How did I get 2 stacks? Yeah, shout out for the Trek Files is up this week on Tuesdays. It's another visit with Mike Demerit. We're talking about all things money and story and how they affect each other. The original series is our incubator, but we do bring it up to the Berman era, and we even talk about TV today and the streaming cinematic TV era. Hey, I would love for you to consider, if you're going to Vegas, to be with us for the one-day Valley of Fire or Kirk Memorial Tour. The day before, you can make it there on the Wednesday before. It's Con Eve, before things start on Thursday. Please do, but you got to be there early. We'll start at 7 a.m. to get out and beat the heat as much as we can. All things where Kirk died, and even some places where he didn't. But LarryNemecek.com for that and for my own tour in August. Love to have you there with us. Whether you stay at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel or not, it's okay. That's where we're starting. And hey, one more shout out if you haven't got your set reserved yet. Picard Season 2 is out on Blu-ray, of course, from Paramount, October 4th. So jump in and check out what deals there may be. Once again, I'm Larry Nemecek on Twitter, but Larry Nemecek's Trekland. Even if you don't YouTube a lot, please go over, like, and subscribe for us. It's the same thing on Instagram and Facebook and portal47.net if you are curious. Just had a lot of folks sample our wares, had a drawing, had some freebies, had people join at SoonerCon and also Phoenix Comic Con. So that's going to do it, folks. Thanks for joining. So we'll see what next week brings. We're going to be close to the end of Strange New Worlds. Have we heard what's even coming next? We'll see. What I do know coming next is I don't know. So many talented folks out there working digitally, building models. I do hope analog model building stays as an art form, something that a lot of people practice. It's so appealing. It's so organically appealing. I have to think somebody out there, some kid, if not some adult, is going to keep the wonderful art of miniature building alive. Will they be as huge a Trek fan in the middle of it all, a genre fan as Greg Jein? Who knows? But I just know that I want to make sure that folks know about Greg's work, his lasting legacy, what a great heart he was, how much he gave to Star Trek. And I mean, literally gave above and beyond being paid for it. Some of the awesomeness of Tribulations would not have been so awesome in someone else's hands, an accountant or lack thereof. So, yeah. So, Greg, this one's for you from me and for a lot of folks across Star Trek. Thank you. Thank you for your craft and your heart. I know wherever you are, you're going to trek well, and I wish the same for all of you are Join us next time when you can. Trek well.